Malaysia just did something no one expected. In a world where international relations are often predictable and carefully choreographed, Malaysia's latest move sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles and financial markets alike. For years, the country has been seen as a reliable partner in Southeast Asia, quietly balancing its relationships with global superpowers. But this time, it stepped into the spotlight with a bold and unprecedented announcement that caught everyone off guard. In a stunning move, Malaysia became the first nation to publicly declare that a major Trump-era trade deal was null and void. This wasn't just a routine policy shift or a minor diplomatic disagreement. It was a direct challenge to American economic dominance, a statement that Malaysia was willing to stand up to one of the world's most powerful countries. The announcement sent ripples through the international community, with analysts and officials scrambling to understand the implications. News outlets around the globe flashed breaking headlines, and social media buzzed with speculation. Was this the beginning of a new era in global trade? Was Malaysia signaling a pivot away from the United States, or was this a calculated move to gain leverage in future negotiations? The world watched as Malaysia took a stand that few had anticipated. But then, in a dramatic twist, just hours after the announcement, Malaysia walked it back. The government issued a statement clarifying its position, suggesting that the earlier declaration had been misunderstood or miscommunicated. The reversal was as surprising as the initial move itself. Suddenly, what seemed like a seismic shift in international relations became a puzzle. Was this a case of internal miscommunication, or was Malaysia testing the waters to gauge the world's reaction? Some speculated that pressure from Washington had forced a quick reversal, while others wondered if this was part of a larger, more complex strategy. The rapid back and forth left both allies and rivals questioning Malaysia's intentions and the stability of the region's diplomatic landscape. So, what is really going on behind the scenes? Is Malaysia sending a message to the world, or simply reacting to internal pressures? And most importantly, what does this mean for the balance of global power? As the dust settles, one thing is clear: the world order is more fragile and unpredictable than ever. Malaysia's unexpected move, and its rapid reversal, reminds us that in today's interconnected world, even a single announcement can have far-reaching consequences. In the chapters ahead, we'll break down the motivations, the reactions, and the potential fallout from this diplomatic roller coaster. Stay tuned as we unravel the story behind Malaysia's unexpected move and what it could mean for the future of international relations. What happened first? Malaysia opens fire. On March 15, 2026, Malaysia's Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Johari Abdul Ghani dropped a political bombshell. In a press conference, he announced that the Reciprocal Trade Agreement, or ART, signed with the United States in October 2025 was officially null and void. The reason? To understand the seismic shift that was about to unfold, we need to look at the legal bedrock underpinning the entire trade relationship between Malaysia and the United States. For years, the framework that governed these high-stakes negotiations rested on a single, powerful piece of American legislation: the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. This act, passed in 1977, gave the U.S. President sweeping authority to regulate commerce in response to any unusual or extraordinary threat to the country's national security, foreign policy, or economy. It was a tool designed for emergencies, but over the decades, it had become a cornerstone of American economic statecraft, invoked to justify sanctions, tariffs, and a host of other measures. But on February 20th, everything changed. In a landmark decision, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Trump's authority to impose sweeping global tariffs under IEEPA. The ruling was not just a technicality, it was a thunderclap that reverberated through the corridors of power in Washington, Kuala Lumpur, and beyond. The justices argued that the president had overstepped the bounds of the law, using emergency powers in ways Congress had never intended. Headlines blared the news: Supreme Court limits presidential tariff powers. Legal scholars pored over the decision, noting that it fundamentally altered the balance of power between the executive branch and Congress when it came to international trade. For Malaysia, the implications were immediate and profound. The trade deal painstakingly negotiated with the Trump administration was built on the very authority the Supreme Court had just invalidated. As Malaysian Finance Minister Johari put it in a tense press conference, "It is not on hold, it is no longer there, it's null and void. The words echoed through the room, signaling not just the collapse of a single agreement, but the unraveling of an entire strategy. The legal documents that had once promised economic cooperation were now stamped with a single damning phrase: null and void. This was more than a bureaucratic setback. It was Malaysia taking the first shot at unraveling Trump's entire tariff strategy. By declaring the deal void, Malaysia was not just reacting to a legal technicality, it was making a bold statement on the world stage. The symbolism was unmistakable: a sovereign nation refusing to be bound by the shifting sands of American domestic politics. In the negotiation rooms, where Malaysian and U.S. flags once stood side by side, the atmosphere turned icy. The carefully crafted agreements once seen as a bridge between two economies were now being torn up, literally and figuratively. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Newsrooms across the globe scrambled to cover the story, with headlines scrolling across screens. Malaysia withdraws from U.S. trade deal, Supreme Court ruling throws global markets into turmoil. On trading floors from New York to Kuala Lumpur, investors watched in disbelief as stock prices swung wildly. The uncertainty sent shockwaves through the financial world, with analysts warning of ripple effects that could destabilize entire sectors. For many, it was a stark reminder of how deeply interconnected legal decisions, international politics, and economic fortunes had become. Analysts wasted no time in framing the moment as a direct challenge to U.S. hegemony. On live television, experts debated the broader implications. Was this the beginning of a new era in global trade, where smaller nations could push back against American dominance, or was it a temporary setback, soon to be resolved by new negotiations and shifting alliances? The graphics on screen highlighted the US and Malaysia, but the real story was global. The Supreme Court's decision had set off a chain reaction, forcing policymakers, business leaders, and ordinary citizens alike to reconsider the rules of the game. In the days and weeks that followed, the world would watch closely as the dust settled, and as new legal and economic foundations began to take shape. Then, the shocking reversal. But just hours later, chaos erupted. Johari's own ministry issued a public correction. The minister had misspoken, they said. No further explanation was given. By the next day, Johari had changed his tune entirely. He told reporters that Malaysia had not received any formal notification from Washington that the deal was cancelled, and that both sides were still negotiating. So, what happened? After Malaysia's surprising move, the world was left with more questions than answers. The international community, journalists, and political analysts all scrambled to make sense of the situation. Was this a calculated risk, a diplomatic misstep, or something else entirely? The uncertainty only fueled speculation, and soon, a storm of theories began to swirl. The theories are honestly pretty wild. Some news outlets ran with the idea that Malaysia was sending a message to the world, signaling its willingness to challenge the established order. Others speculated that this was a desperate attempt to gain leverage in ongoing trade negotiations, or perhaps a move to curry favor with other regional powers. Social media, of course, exploded with its own brand of speculation, ranging from the plausible to the downright bizarre. Some users even suggested secret backroom deals or shadowy international alliances at play. Some people believe Malaysia was actually testing the waters, maybe seeing if it could break free without facing any real consequences. According to this theory, Malaysian officials wanted to see just how far they could push the boundaries of international law and U.S. policy. Perhaps they hoped that by making a bold move, they could negotiate from a position of strength, or at least draw attention to their grievances. Behind closed doors, government advisors and diplomats might have weighed the risks and rewards, debating whether the potential benefits outweighed the dangers of provoking a global superpower. On the other hand, others suspect that Washington applied immediate and intense diplomatic pressure, all behind closed doors. The U.S. government, with its vast network of diplomats and intelligence agencies, is known for moving quickly when its interests are threatened. Some insiders claim that as soon as Malaysia's actions became public, American officials reached out through every available channel: phone calls, urgent cables, even personal visits from high-ranking diplomats. The message was clear: reverse course, or face serious consequences. This theory suggests that Malaysia's apparent change of heart wasn't voluntary at all, but the result of overwhelming pressure from Washington. But one thing is for sure. Trump had already warned that any country trying to play games with the Supreme Court ruling would face, quote, higher tariffs than ever before. This wasn't just a vague threat, it was a clear and direct warning to every nation considering defiance. The Trump administration had made it abundantly clear that the United States would not tolerate any attempts to undermine its legal victories or international standing. For Malaysia, the stakes couldn't have been higher. The threat of economic retaliation, especially in the form of tariffs, could have devastating consequences for its export-driven economy. In the end, whether Malaysia's actions were a bold gamble or a miscalculation, the pressure from Washington was impossible to ignore. The world watched as events unfolded, knowing that the balance of power was being tested in real time, and while the true story may never be fully known, one thing is certain: the episode left a lasting mark on international relations and a warning to any country thinking of challenging the status quo. Why would Malaysia want to reject the deal? Well, the confusion is honestly pretty understandable. The original trade deal was deeply unpopular in Malaysia right from the start. It was signed during Trump's visit to Kuala Lumpur, and, critics called it one-sided and a real threat to national sovereignty. Under the agreement, Malaysia pledged $240 billion in investments and purchases of American goods, including things like beef and aircraft, in exchange for a tariff rate of 19% on its exports to the United States. Critics, including former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, said the deal basically amounted to handing over Malaysia's independence and forcing the country to give up its long-standing neutrality. Hey, share this video with your family, friends, and really everyone you know on WhatsApp, Facebook, and Telegram groups to help keep everyone informed. And don't forget to subscribe now. Just hit that red button.